Livingstone was a famous explorer born in 1813. He made a lot of geographical discoveries on the continent of Africa. He spent a lot of time searching rivers and the source of rivers. He spent right up until the end of his life searching for the source of the Nile. And I mean, he made a lot of famous discoveries. Victoria Falls, beautiful, huge Victoria Falls. Livingstone, for the purposes of Western science, is the one who located Victoria Falls on the Zambezi. Okay? He did a lot of really cool things. He was attacked by a lion. He said he was shaken like a terrier dog does a rat. That's how he was shaken by this lion. It broke his arm in 2 places. He had to be saved by one of his followers, native followers. And so he spent his whole life over there. And when I read this, he was famous, guys. He was like African Idol, okay? Everybody followed this guy. And he sent dispatches back and stuff, and people read about him. He was so famous that when he wasn't heard from for months, the New York Herald sent a reporter after him, Stanley, right? That's where we get the famous phrase, Dr. Livingstone, I presume, when he found him, okay? So, when I read this, what Livingstone says, I want you to relate this and think about our importance of being missionaries in this world, and in particular being missionaries to your family, to your wife, and to your children, okay? Because to them first, we must be missionaries, okay? Right in your own home. And if you're single, this still pertains to you, because you need to be praying for your future wife and praying for her and for her family and for your union together. Okay? If that's what God has for you. Here we go. Livingstone said, people talk of the sacrifice I have made in spending so much of my life in Africa. Can that be called a sacrifice, which is simply acknowledging a great debt we owe to our God, which we can never repay? Is that a sacrifice which brings its own reward in healthful activity, the consciousness of doing good, peace of mind, and a bright hope of a glorious destiny? It is emphatically no sacrifice. Rather, it is a privilege. Anxiety, sickness, suffering, danger, foregoing the common conveniences of this life, these may make us pause and cause the spirit to waver and the soul to sink. But let this only be for a moment. All these are nothing compared with the glory, which shall later be revealed in and through us. That's Romans 8:18 right there. I never made a sacrifice, he said. Of this we ought not to talk when we remember the great sacrifice which he made, who left his Father's throne on high to give himself for us. That's good stuff. Guys, let's remember what we talked about last week. And we said our word of the week was sacrifice. And we related it to Ephesians 5:22-28. And I'm going to pick up at verse 25 where it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. So we talked about love your wife. We talked about love your wife sacrificially. And we said that sacrifice is not just acts of kindness, not just doing things. So this is this week's word of the week. Goal. When we lack direction, we lack a goal. Or better said, when we lack a goal, we lack direction. We don't know what to head to. Listen, sacrifice is risking emotional pain. And that's what scares the dickens out of men. We're not so good in that territory. Okay? It is risking emotional pain. You run the risk of rejection, getting your feelings hurt. Okay? Opening yourselves up and giving away your deepest, darkest secrets. Let me tell you something. That is the key to a successful marriage. Okay? You may not believe it, but sacrifice really involves risking yourself. And it's a beautiful risk. It's a necessary risk. All right, so what is our purpose as husbands? What do we expect to happen? What is the expectation of love? Here we go. This is one of our goals. This should be one of our goals. Love your wife sacrificially so she blooms as God planned. So she blooms right where God plants her. We should love, we should facilitate that. We should sacrifice and give up for that. Okay? And it's so hard in our workaday world as we're making a living and busting our tails and doing all we can. It's so hard to gear down sometimes to even make time for our wives and our children. But it's absolutely necessary that we learn to die to ourselves. And guys, I'm holding up a mirror when I say that, because I have my own little fun things that I like to do too, and it's hard to give up. But that's what we're talking about here. The purpose of love is the perfecting of the one loved. That's what the purpose of love is the perfecting of the one loved. Letting God have his way with her and her heart. So, let's look at some macro goals and some micro goals. Macro meaning overarching, micro meaning rubber meets the road. What can we do to achieve those macro goals? All right? We'll pull it right out of those verses. Christ's first goal for his church is that he might sanctify her. His second goal is to present her in glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing. His third goal is that she should be holy and blameless. And in the same way, that should be our goals for our wife. That's why it's in the Bible. God gave us that to model what a true marriage is. Okay? Jesus is the bridegroom, we're the bride, is his church. All right, so what does it mean? Sanctify, that first one, that first goal, what does that mean? Sanctify means to set apart. And when we get married, guys, we set them apart from the world for special care, for special provision, for special protection. We set them apart and we say, you know what? She now has my name. Think about the weight. Just like we are Christians, therefore we carry the name of Christ. Your wife is carrying your name, guys. That is under the shelter of Luke for me. It's under the shelter of Bledsoe for Chris. Okay? Of Moore for Tony. And right on down the line. Think about that. She carries your name. Just like we do Jesus as Christians. When you get married, that's what you've done. You've taken her out of the world, set her apart because you want to devote special attention and love to her. Christ's second goal is to present her in glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing. His third goal is that she should be holy and blameless. And I thought it was really coincidental, not so coincidental because God's in charge. What we studied some this week in that book, some of those quotes, really cool. Let me read them real quick. I got to move. He is to be a man of, I'm talking about a husband. He is to be a man of the word who lives a godly life, praying and sacrificing for his wife. His authentic spirituality is meant to buoy her onward toward the image of Christ. The man who sanctifies his wife understands that this is his divinely ordained responsibility. And I thought one of the coolest thoughts that Kent Hughes wrote in that book this week was, loving your spouse is not to love her as a saint, but as a sinner. Are you willing to do that? We're willing to love ourselves right in the midst of our sin, aren't we? Ourselves. We can overlook that. We can rationalize it. But are we willing to love our wives, not as the saint that she normally is, but as the sinner that she truly is? Because we all are fallen and we fall short of the glory of God. Sacrifice means giving up our rights to ourselves. So that also means some micro goals. And we're going to dive into these in coming weeks, but here's some of them. Time, T-I-M-E. That's how you spell love in a marriage. Commitment, purity, conversation. That's a big one. Conversation, guys, that's her currency. That's her currency. That's what she trades in. Okay? And deference, giving up yourself for her. Let me close with this. We must be a missionary to our family first. And a missionary has a goal. Man, Livingstone spent his entire life charting out the continent of Africa for Western science. He made many huge discoveries. He had a goal, but you know what he was doing the entire time? He was a missionary of the Lord Jesus Christ, sharing Christ with those people. He died in Zambia, near Lake Bangui Ulu. Okay? I got that out. Can you believe it? In Chief Chitambo's village. Check this out. He died from malaria and from internal bleeding due to dysentery. Okay? He spent 4 years sick as a dog, and every time they had dispatched medicine to him, somebody would steal it on the way. So he wasn't even getting treated. He was just slowly deteriorating. He took his final breaths while kneeling in prayer at his bedside. That's how I want to die. That's incredible. When he died, Britain wanted the body to give it a proper burial. But the tribe would not relinquish his body. Finally, they relented. But you know what they did? They cut his heart out. They stuck a note on the body and they sent it back to London. And you know what they said on that note? You can have his body, but his heart belongs to Africa. when I die, I want him to stick a note on that casket that said, you can have his body, earth, but his heart belongs to Jesus and Karen Luke.
Amen.
Let's live that way.